Extorted? Okay. Oh, I forgot to. Good looks.
I was like, if I ask him if I tell him too much, he's going to be so annoyed.
No, it's fine. Like, I honestly, I forget a lot. Yeah, you get.
Specialist was called. Yeah, but when I asked, I said, look, guys, do you think it's a drug or do you think it's exposed besides we miss species of being exposed? Okay, then go ahead. It's absolutely not. I can go.
So this helps with like muscles or
muscles? Well,
All right, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala sayyidina anbiya wa mursaleen, nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een, amma ba'd. I'm sorry?
Your mic is on too.
Yes, it is. Okay, so today, inshallah, we're going to talk about or move into the next section of the Iḥyā, which is afat al-lisan, or faults of the tongue. And this is something that's really important, right? So he talked about the two desires, or the two carnal desires, and now he's going to move into and he's going to talk about the tongue. So what is the relationship between the two, and why is it that he moved, or he's progressing in this way? Yeah, I know, so, like too much overload, I get it. So the previous chapters, he talked about breaking the two desires, right? So he talked about breaking the two carnal lusts, which were what? Lust and hunger, right? So he talked about lust and hunger, and now he's going to talk about the tongue, right? And he's going to talk about the faults of the tongue. What is the relationship between these two? Why transition into this, or why not place one before the other? Why did he place the two desires before the discussion on the tongue? Okay, so which one impacts you and which one impacts others? Okay. Okay, it can. Well, I mean, so, technically, so can my desires, right? Okay, but there's definitely a connection, and I think you guys are seeing that. But this particular order. So I guess let me put it into a different perspective. What drives what?
The desire
right, the desire is going to drive what it is that we say and what it is that we do, which is why he talks about the tongue. And in the introduction, what he actually does is he praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He talks about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this tongue, has given us this ability, has given us this understanding, has given us the ability to process. He Azza wa Jal has given us the ability to communicate with one another. And all of these blessings come through this small morsel of flesh, right? So he says this very small muscle that Allah has given us. And it is through this small muscle that we have this ability to express. We have this ability to talk. He said it is through this same muscle that we can express great obedience, and we can also fall into great sin. The height of which, the pinnacle of which, is obedience and disbelief. He even compares it to the other limbs, right? When he talks about the other organs and he talks about the other limbs, he says that the eye actually only has the ability to grasp, right? It only has the ability to catch. He's saying that the ear, the same thing. It only has the ability to catch, and even that within very specific and very particular scopes. He talks about the hand having only the ability to touch and the ability to grab, but he said it is none can do what the tongue does in terms of expression. None can do what the tongue does in terms of sharing. None can do what the tongue does in terms of interaction. And this is what is unique about the small piece of flesh, the small morsel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in our mouths. The Prophet ﷺ, he said to Mu'adh, Mu'adh said to him, Ya Rasulullah, are we accounted by what we say? The Prophet ﷺ, he grabbed his tongue and he said, it is not except by this that people are thrown by their face first into the hellfire. Is there any other limb that is capable of such a crime? Think about it. No. The tongue is the most capable limb out of all the limbs capable of such an evil crime. Even the worst crime that we can think of committing with our hands, maybe murder, right? This is the highest, but none of them will ever reach the level of actually making a statement of disbelief. This is the power of the tongue. And this is why Ghazāli spends so much time, and he will spend a lot of time concerning it. So what are some of the faults of the tongue? He said it's important that he mentions them individually. He actually makes a list, right? There's an entire list of the faults that he mentions concerning the tongue. He mentions its limits on, when you should speak, when you shouldn't speak, the reasons, or what is it that pushes us to say the things that we do, the dangers of the tongue, and then finally he mentions the ways to protect ourselves. In the first chapter that he begins with, the first thing he talks about is the importance of samt, the importance of silence. And there are a lot of narrations, right? There are a lot of narrations, there are a lot of discussions concerning that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Man samata naja," that whoever remains silent is or has succeeded. Another hadith, the majority of people to enter paradise will be due to having taqwa of Allah and husn al-khuluq. And the majority of people to enter the hellfire due to the two barren limbs are the tongue and the sex organ. That these are the things that get people into paradise, and these are the things that throw the people into the hellfire. It just shows the gravity of the importance of learning how to understand, learning how to control this organ, learning the faults that are there, learning what the shortcomings are, learning how to protect ourselves from it. And we have a number of narrations regarding the tongue. Hasan al-Basri, he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us teeth in order to cage, like literally cage our tongue. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen more than we speak. And there's so many things that we all hear about. There's so many things that we all know. So I just want to pause here. I wanted to start the class again today because I wanted to open up the discussion on the importance of understanding the fragility of our tongues and the harms that they cause. Why do you think he spends so much time on it? Ghazāli made his opening statement now to all of you. What do you guys think? Do you think it deserves this much space, this much time, or no? And if you do, why? If you don't, why? Nobody gets to escape. Okay, it can lead to the hellfire. And we said that the ways that the tongue can lead us to the hellfire is by making a statement of disbelief. Very simply, very easily. What else? What else can we do with our tongues? Right, making statements. Like what are some sins that we can do? We can backbite, slander, false witness, lying. Same, it's the same organ. It's the same thing that we're speaking with. And the number of problems, how many people get into trouble because of this? How many of us have gotten in trouble because of this? Just not conscious of what we say, not conscious of what we're doing sometimes. And sometimes, what are some of the things that drive us to say what we do? All right, emotions. And emotions, we had talked about before. Is there a problem with emotions? No, right? There's no problem with emotions. When are they okay, and when can they be a problem? Okay, when you can't control them, when we don't channel them appropriately, right? When we don't put our anger in the right place, when we don't put our happiness in the right place, when we don't put our sadness in the right place. So that emotion will push us now to say something. And it'll push us to say something inappropriate. We allowed that emotion now to control us. What could we have done to prevent it? Or what could we have done to channel it? And if I'm angry, am I allowed to say something? Okay, yes. Right, so sometimes anger pushes us to say something courageous, absolutely. right? If somebody says something about Allah, and I respond. Somebody says something about the Prophet ﷺ, I respond. Or about my parents, or about my friends, and I respond. I'm going to get what? Angry. I'm going to get upset, and I'm going to respond. When does that become a problem? When does it become an issue? All right, when you start getting insulting, for sure. How do I allow myself to become insulting? What happens at that moment? What is it that I'm feeling? In addition to the emotion. I don't want you guys to say anger. Okay. I don't feel like I'm accountable. I feel like I'm justified. Where do these feelings stem from?
Arrogance.
From arrogance. And we'll find time and time again, many times we say the things that we do because of our own arrogance, because of the love of ourselves. Because essentially, what am I doing? I am giving myself more importance. I'm giving my feelings more importance than the person in front of me. Another way of, what do you guys think about pity when I feel bad for someone? Is that a good feeling? Is it a bad feeling? It can be both. Okay. Give me an example of where it's good and an example where it's bad.
Maybe you're feeling bad about feel pity for your kids.
All right. So my kid doesn't pass his exam, right? It's an example.
Sure.
I feel pity for him. What do? I get him some ice cream. I ground him until he passes the exam. Right? I discipline him until it was leftover stuff from the last class. So here, through my pity, I'm giving him ice cream. Will that help him improve? No. Is it a problem if I give him ice cream? No. So when we said it's a problem with pity, when is it okay? Uh-huh. Okay, so you use it as a reward. All right. Where is it bad? When you're enabling someone. And this happens in many situations. So in a masjid I was at previously, they needed somebody to clean the masjid. So they hired someone who didn't actually have the physical ability. He had a heart condition and he couldn't work. But they hired him to clean. Why? What happened? Okay, so they think, okay, he has a job. And it is out of pity that they hired him. Did it help him? No. Financially, sure. Right? Maybe it helped him. Maybe, right? Who did it not help? It didn't help the masjid. Why? Right? The masjid wasn't getting cleaned the way that it should get cleaned. Pity is just a veil for arrogance. Why? Because I'm putting my feelings in front of the feelings of the person in front of me. I think I'm in a better position. I think I'm higher than the person that's in front of me. Because I can now, when I'm pitying, what am I doing? I go, oh, this poor peon, this peasant, right? And many times we look at these things and we think like they're very harmless. We have to think like, are we enabling the person or are we empowering the person in front of me? If this person, like there are different ways to empower people and there are different ways to enable people. What is the difference between empowering and enabling? Or are they the same?
You either give the fish or the fishing.
Okay. So either I'm giving a fish or a fishing rod. That's actually pretty good. I like that. So what's the difference? If I give him the fish, what's the problem? All right, he's going to ask for more fish when he's done.
He'll ask you to cook it for you.
Really asking, oh, and then those things like, okay, well, can you treat it for me? All right, can you cook it for me? Well, can you start the fire for me? Okay, can you feed me the fish? Right, and those demands, they just kind of keep growing and they kind of keep building. Does this become a societal problem or no? Or can it?
Yes.
Yes, it can. Absolutely. And where does it become a problem? When we feel we are in a position to? Huh? To give. Because it's not necessary that the person on the other end needs to receive it. But if I'm in a position where I feel I need to help people, then I'm going to try to be part of systems that help bring people and bring my community up.
What would you do in that situation? The ones like our situations, how would you help them?
You just help them, give them a handout. I have no problem with that. Like you have to understand, giving charity to someone is, I don't have a problem with giving charity to anyone. If somebody's actually deserving of charity, what should we do? We should help them out. We should give it. But the problem, we confuse things sometimes. Who should I put to clean the masjid? Someone who has the ability to do it, right? And if I wanted to hire him as a helper, that's a very different scenario. But sometimes institutions don't have the ability to hire two people. Yes.
So what if you're like sympathizing, like you're helping people understand what they think?
Sure.
So, and you want to help.
Okay. So me personally, what I do when somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, I need help. I'm like, okay, sure. What are you good at? What would you like to learn? What is it that you're looking to do? And then what can I do at that point? I'm sorry? All right, help him based on his ability, and the way, again, that I personally would do, I would invest. Does that make sense? If somebody has a business, it's like, okay, what are you doing to grow your business? Like, man, I have a business, I'm not doing well. Okay, sure. What are the problems? What's going on? It's like, okay, well, I'm driving this car around and, the car breaks down every once in a while and I keep spending my money on fixing this car. All right, what kind of income are you looking at? How much money do you have? Okay, well, it looks like based on what you have here, you can lease a car and you'll have something that's reliable. I'm still going to be wary, right? Because I don't want to become the person he comes to every month. So what is something that I can actually do? Right, I'm trying to teach him how to solve a problem. He'll be like, okay, well, my credit score isn't good enough to lease a car. What can I do? I can co-sign. I've taken a little bit of a risk, right? I've taken a little bit of a risk. But have I enabled him? Maybe, possibly. But where does that line come in? Right, it depends. Like, it has to be give and take. Does the give and take have to be equal?
Yes. No,
I don't think it has to be something. Yeah. I don't think it needs to be equal, personally. And this is with any relationship that we have, right? If we think about any friendship that we have, is the give and take in every friendship we have equal? Right, not always. Sometimes there's one friend who just gives more. And maybe I'm the one that gives less. But what is important, even in that relationship? That both are contributing, right? As long as there's mutual contribution and continuous contribution, then that is a friendship that is worth maintaining. There's no doubt about that. Regardless of the person giving more or the person giving less. And the reason for that is because we're all different. We're all different. There's no way that we can always equate each other. We just can't. So this is something that's really important. We have these things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us these characteristics. He's given us these tools, and we have to learn to utilize them. So what are some things that differentiate the tongue? Or what are some unique things? Or what are some ways that we can actually withhold? The first thing that Ghazāli talks about is silence. So when we talk about the importance of silence, absolutely, forever silent, is that what's intended? No. What is the intention then? Okay, controlled silence. Controlled silence. The good of the Islam of an individual is when he doesn't speak in that which doesn't concern him. In other words, mind your business. Right? If people are talking about something, don't say anything. When should I include myself in the conversation? Huh? Okay. So if there are two people talking about me, like it involves me, right? So I'm like, yeah, Imam Farhan, he's like causes all these problems, teaches all these weird classes, right? So then I jump in, like, you talking about me? Uh-huh. It's like, my classes are not weird, they're amazing. What is the line? Where do I include myself in the conversation?
You have something beneficial to say.
Okay, so who determines the benefit? I'm always got something beneficial to say. Bars, bro. Okay, if I want to correct someone, how?
Like if you know what they're saying, like.
All right. Okay, so if I hear two people talking and someone's like, yeah, people don't know, but we actually have to pray 6 times a day.
Oh.
I'm just saying, like, example. So, and then like you overhear that and you're like, what I mean? Like, okay, I don't know about that one. Like, at that point I should jump in, be like, actually, there's only 5 prayers. Y'all don't know. You're welcome. Check yourself. Right? Is that like that?
Not like that.
No. Okay, how would you do it? You over here, I'm talking to Nazim, I'll be like, yo, people just don't know. There's 6 prayers in a day.
Maybe just politely. Like.
Sure, politely. I'm having a conversation. Go ahead, correct me.
Okay.
So there's 6 prayers in a day, and it's very important. Excuse me, I wasn't talking to you.
Oh.
And it's as simple as that, right? And the reason, like, I didn't mean to disrespect you, but why use that as an example, or why do that? Because it happens a lot. And the reason, why do we not jump in on other people's conversations? It's not about not caring, right? It's important for us to care about, the people around us. There's no doubt about that. Right? Because was I invited into the conversation? Did anybody ask what I thought? And even if I know I'm 100% right, what are the chances of me taking your advice? Like slim to none. I will just reject you immediately, even if you are 100% right. Like in this situation, I know you are 100% right and I'm 100% wrong. But just on the basis of you cutting me off and you jumping in, what am I going to do? I'm going to cut her off. Is this the best way for us to correct each other? It's not. And you know the thing that we all complain about? The judginess of the Ammus? Is that exactly what we're doing? Or is that exactly what happened here? Right? That's exactly what's happening. There's no reason for us to jump into other people's conversations. And on top of that, have you established your authority in terms of your knowledge or who you are or your role? You know what I mean? Like there are certain ways for us to establish ourselves in the community. Like for you to come and approach someone and for me to come and approach someone. Just an example. Is it going to be treated differently? Yeah, for sure. Why? Because I'm the Imam of the community and people are going to be like, oh, well, it's the Imam. Like if he's saying something, there's some credibility behind it. Why? Not because of who I am, but because of my position, right? Because of my position, because people are like, okay, well, there are enough people trusted this guy to put him here. He must know something, right? And the reason that they wouldn't give you that same status is why? They have no idea who you are. It's again, it's not meant to be disrespectful. It's not to be meant looked down. It's like, okay, well, we just have no idea who you are. We don't know what your authority is. We don't know your knowledge base. We don't know any of these things. And this guy, well, we know him. So we're going to take what he has to say. And even we do this amongst our friends, right? When a stranger hollers from across the street and says something, do we care what he has to say? No. I mean, the guy could be a professor in whatever it is that I'm talking about. But I'm not going to care because I have no idea who he is. He hasn't established his credibility.
I struggle with this.
Sure.
So I was at Juma last Friday.
Sure.
Right? And I went back to my car across the street.
And they're like, brother, you need to pray again.
It's not my.
It's like your pants are too long.
But
Yeah.
There was a couple of people parked in the grass.
Sure.
Right across the street.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say anything.
Sure.
Like, this is my place.
Yeah.
I was watching, like, nobody was saying anything to these guys.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't say anything, then, like, if the church finds out, we may not be able to park there, because that happened.
Cool.
Right?
So what do we do?
I was like, hey, excuse me, just so you guys don't know, like, we actually were stopped from parking here during Eid because there was some miscommunication with the grass. So
Sure.
next time you come, we don't want to park in the grass.
Sure. And that can work for sure. So, right. The approach is very important.
Is that
but
too far? Or
on top of it depends, right? Some people, they might take offense, be like, don't tell me where to park.
I mean,
right?
I was expecting that. The guy was cool, but I was like.
So the thing is, it's very important to gauge that. Like, it might be somebody you recognize, like, hey, aren't you, what I mean? All of a sudden you've established that connection. After the connection is established, then you can go ahead and initiate those conversations. But at the end of the day, if somebody's doing something wrong like that, what I would do is, like, I would just go to security and be like, hey, there's some guys who are parked illegally, have them towed. Yeah.
Because I heard something like, basically, like, if you see something wrong with the correct it.
Sure.
But like the correct understanding is like, like if you have authority.
If you have authority, absolutely. Whoever amongst you sees a munkar, sees an evil, then he should change it with his hand. And if he's unable to, he should change it with his tongue. And if he's unable to, he should hate it in his heart. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ, and this is the weakest part of Iman. Is that an absolute sense? If I see my father, may Allah protect us and our families, with alcohol in his hand, I should be like, hey, and like smack it out of his hand? Of course, right? Of course. What kind of shit are you, right? No, because that is not going to be the most effective means in that situation. It's situational. It's based on your authority, right? There's so many levels and layers that we have to take. Like, taking some of these hadith at face value, it can become very problematic for many of us. Now, for example, if I see someone parked illegally, I'll be like, all right, man, I got this. Take the chain out and like start pulling the car away and, tow it away. Right? And it's a munkar. It's an evil. Like, he's stopping us and he's going to cause problems for us. So I'm going to tow his car away. Probably not the best way to handle things. It's important to understand the situations that we're in so that we learn to react appropriately. The best way to interject in any situation that we find a problem is when we're invited. Simple. Because the moment that we're invited, what happens? We've opened ourselves up to criticism. Like, if I said to you, hey, what do you think? All of a sudden now, what have I done? I've validated whatever it is that you're about to say, and I'm ready to receive it. But if I come in and be like, all right, pants too long, beard too short, it's like, you got to pull up your socks a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, so there's so many things that we can do. We can just start judging. We start judging one another, and it comes across as just that, as judgy. And all of a sudden, when I'm saying these things about other people, what have I done to myself? I've just come up and like, I've raised myself like, let me fix these peons here, right? And this is, it's a real problem. And some of us, we might gravitate toward it more naturally, some of us a little bit less, but all of us love that ego boost. Like, we like feeling good. And this is the importance of sincerity. Am I doing this because I want to flex? Or am I doing this because I really want to help my Muslim brother or sister? And that's a tough question sometimes.
I think the smart way of going about it, of advising somebody, is create like maybe a little relationship with them.
Listen, this is the best solution to any problem. Any problem that we face in our lives, the best thing to do is to establish a relationship. That's as simple as that. If I want to solve anything, I have to establish a relationship. I remember one of the questions that I had gotten when I was being hired, like, what are we going to do for the Black community? This is a question that I got. And I was like, they're not children. Like, I don't need to go and like take care of them. I was like, but what I would do, I would establish the relationship. See what the needs are. Instead of me coming and dictating and telling them like, hey, you guys need this, this, and this, right? Which is from a place of arrogance. Who am I to dictate to any community what they need or what they want? That relationship should build organically, because even when I come and do help them, how are they going to feel about it? They're going to feel like it's more sincere. They're like, oh, well, we know this guy. Like, Like he's come, he talks to us. Like, we spend time with him, we hang out with him. So when he comes and gives, it's not a place of like, oh yes, here's $100,000. Thank me, no problem. It's not that, because for some people it can come across like that. How many of us wants to feel like we're receiving a handout? Nobody does. Nobody enjoys that. So establishing, because think about even with the Prophet ﷺ, who are the first people who accepted Islam? And who are most of the people who accepted Islam? Those people who he had a relationship with. Or either directly or by extension. Are there people you can walk up to one time and it's like, hey bro, you ever heard about Islam? No, it's amazing. Ashhadu an la ilaha, right? You'll have those situations, but those situations they're far less than the situations where there's an established relationship. All right. So anyway, I just wanted to give this small introduction to before we start getting into some of the themes that Ghazāli would discuss and some of the issues that Ghazāli discusses concerning the tongue and some of the problems behind it. But next week we'll delve more into the importance of silence. Any questions? Yes.
So is pity like unity, is it a bad thing?
I think it is. I don't think pity helped. I can't think of any situation where pity has helped the person on the receiving end.
So as a Muslim, we shouldn't pity other people?
I don't think so. I think we should always look for ways to empower people.
But would you have to pity them to feel the need to empower them?
If I pitied them, that means that they don't have the ability to be empowered because they're low. Empowering means I see potential.
Charities that make the business out of it.
Victimization, pity, all of these are big money makers. Why? Because it plays on all our ego strings. It makes us feel good. And I don't mean to doubt the intention of any of the people. Like for example, protesting. Like I don't doubt the intention of any people who are out there protesting. But what happens the day after the protest? People feel good and go home. Like I did something. I feel fulfilled. Yeah.
So like going back on last week when we were talking about the cat, let's say you want to give the cat something to homeless person that's walking at the stoplight, and you know that they might use that money for drugs. Would that not be?
That's enabling, right? So we had talked about zakat is a little bit different. What is the purpose of zakat? What is the purpose? To cleanse my own wealth. Think about that. Zakat is not meant to be a social welfare system. It's just not enough money. Like practically, it's not enough money. It's meant for me to purify my wealth and to get into the habit of giving. I don't think it's enough. I don't think there's enough money to take care of the problems of the needy through zakat. It's just not enough. It's nowhere near enough. And it's 2.5% of every, like you have to realize Islam has a flat tax system. It's not a progressive tax. So whether you make $7 billion a year or you make $5 a year, you're going to be paying 2.5%. It's just not enough. It's just not enough wealth. It's not enough money. Yeah.
I don't understand what
a waqf is an endowment, and it's basically a means to supply revenue and income for a project or an institution. So Dar Hijra owns the house here on the corner. That would be considered an endowment or a waqf. Why? Because the people who live in it, what do? They pay rent. And where does the money go? It goes back to the masjid. It's like an investment. Does that make a little bit more sense? Okay. House, we'll stop here. I'll see you guys next week, inshallah. I have to keep the front gate, so I have to. I'll get everyone out, I promise.
No,
No, I mean.